And hello everybody, and hope you're all alright, and welcome back to Freedom Fighter. I got the time to have a chat over a live stream on Zoom with a health practitioner who deals in mental health awareness and psychology and that type of thing. And I was asking her a few questions on how we can help the community and people that suffer from mental health and things like that. It's Kati Morton. She's quite educational. So let's jump into listening to that now. Hi, Kati.
Hey everybody.
We know that this community is actually growing and there's more mental health awareness that's happening on this particular community. There's a lot of cyberbullying and things like that as well. What do you think about the community that is growing to bring around mental health awareness?
What it really tells me is that our community is so great and everybody wants to help one another, and I love it so much.
I've noticed with the channels that there's a lot that are wanting to actually help people with mental health, and they actually go around helping the person actually wrong. So as a trained professional, what tips would you actually give somebody who wants to actually help these particular people that are suffering from this illness?
And my first tip is just to be a good friend. Even if it's a family member, we can still be a friend to them, right? That means that we need to call them, text them, send them voice memos. However you talk to them, do that. Check in on them. And these calls and texts and however you communicate doesn't have to be like, hey, how's recovery going? Or hey, are you taking that medication? Like, how are you feeling? It really is just like, hey, how's it going? How are you feeling? I noticed you've been a little down. I want you to know I'm here for you. Because the thing that we need to remember is that we can't force anybody to do anything. It's honestly best if we don't try to push our agenda onto them. It's better if we just check in. We care for them. We meet them where they're at. We do our best to understand what they're going through and assist as much as we can, which kind of rolls into my second tip, which is educate yourself. If you know a friend or family member is going through depression, let's say, find out how that feels for them. You can educate yourself on the back end, like what is depression? How is it diagnosed? What kind of treatment could they get if they want it? What could I offer to help them find? Is it just a therapist? Should they see a psychiatrist? Those are all things that we can easily educate ourselves through YouTube, through Googling, WebMD, whatever, we can find it. And so I'd encourage you to do that. And then ask them to tell you about it if they're comfortable. Like, what does it mean to them? If they're struggling with depression, how does it feel? Is it just that you're really tired and lethargic, or do you feel irritable and angry? Or is it just really hard to concentrate at work? Like, how does it manifest for them? Because like I'm always saying, everybody's body's different. Everyone's mental illness affects them differently. That's why there's a ton of different symptoms that we kind of, as therapists, check off. They must meet 3 of these or 5 of these out of like a whole list of 10. So ask them how it feels to them first before we just assume, because we don't want to assume that everyone's depression is the same. Like I just mentioned, it could just be I'm really tired and lethargic. It could be that I'm super irritable and like angry at people, or it could be just concentration difficulties. We don't know. If we don't ask, we don't know. So notice if you're making assumptions about their situation, and instead ask questions and seek to understand. And my third tip is truthfully to assist in any way that you can. This means that if we're checking in on them, tip number 1, number 2, we're educating ourselves, and let's say that friend or family member says, I would like to see a therapist or a psychiatrist or get into treatment, whatever it may be, we can help them out. That may be helping with a copay. If we're a parent and this is our child or a friend, you could just say, hey, I'm happy to help if the copay is like $30. I can spot you some if that makes it easier. Or you can offer to pay for it in full. You can offer to take them there. You can offer to help them find someone. There are a lot of ways that we can assist in the process of their recovery path. It's just making sure that they're already ready for that step, and we're just going to make it easier for them to get the help that they need.
So say you have a family member that's really suffering from this illness, can you actually sign them into the hospital to actually seek this particular help, or can't you do that? Because laws have changed. It used to take 3 doctors to actually section you. It now only takes 1.
As family members, we cannot hold someone against their will. We can't put someone in the hospital. Only people that can do that are, EMTs, therapists, psychiatrists, other doctors, other health professionals. Those are the ones that can actually 5150 someone. And that's really a last resort.
So why do these actually exist then?
Because it is a way to ensure that we are safe, meaning we're not going to harm ourselves and we're not going to harm someone else. That's why 5150s actually exist. However, I know from personal experience with patients in the hospital, because I used to work where people who came in on a 5150 would see me first, and I have to assess them and decide whether we would hold them and see what the doctor or clinician was telling me, do my own assessment, and then maybe send them upstairs to the locked psych ward. And it can keep us safe for a period of time, but by and large, I find that it's more harm than good.
But these 5150s and these, of course, sectioning, actually, they say they actually do it on the last resort. But a lot of people have these suicidal thoughts, so these sectioning and 5150s actually support them, don't they? In a sense. But they do make things worse as well.
Yes, maybe we were suicidal, but it could have helped if we had a therapist on board already and they could have an emergency session with us, or they could check in on us, or we had a family member who would stay with us and help talk us through it.
A lot of people that actually deal with suicide and depression and that type of thing are actually scared to talk about it, and they're actually trained clinicians, aren't they?
I know that a lot of people and a lot of clinicians alike get really scared with the topic of suicide or someone who's homicidal, wanting to hurt someone else. But I find that by and large, most people just need to talk about it. Something's happening and they want someone to listen. And so that's why those other steps, like seeing a therapist, getting an emergency session, texting with your therapist, checking in, having a family member or friend help us out. Like, there are all these steps in place. Even back at the beginning, I usually do like a safety plan with a patient preemptively. Then I'll have them sign a no harm contract. And so there are all these steps that we put in place leading up to the last resort, which is a 5150. Because when we put someone on a hold, we're forcing them to do something. And we all know that if we decide to do something on our own, for some reason, we're so much more excited to do it. However, if someone else pushes and tells us we have to, we might not like it so much. And so just keep that in mind when it comes to helping someone else. We cannot make those in our lives get better. And by forcing them to, if that's the only conversations we have, if we're trying to force them into getting help, we'll truly just push them farther and farther away. And I'm sure a lot of you watching this video right now have been in that situation where a parent or a friend has just hounded you about it, and you just kind of don't talk to them anymore because you're not at that place yet. And so keep that in mind when you have a friend or a family member in your life who's struggling. Make sure that you hear them out. Let them decide their treatment. Obviously, like I said, the 5150s exist to keep us safe, but there are so many other steps leading up to that, and we have to just support people, check in. And I know that a lot of times we can feel really helpless, and that's a sucky feeling because we want them to get better and we want to help, and we know that they're struggling. Especially if we have a friend who's depressed and we know that they've had suicidal thoughts, we can worry about them. But that's why it's important to check in and sometimes just offer to pick up takeout and come over and sit with them. Let's watch Netflix. Not making it a big deal, just being there. Because if you remember, part of our DBT skills, one of the things we have to check in on is HALT. Are we hungry, angry, lonely, tired? That hunger and loneliness, as a friend or family member, we can totally help with. We can cure it for that chunk of time, right? And so just think of the ways that you can help those that you love. Gently, kindly, by just letting them know that you're there. And most importantly, that you care and support them. Because we don't want to push anybody away. We want everybody to get the help they need when they need it most. And I think that applies to all issues, whether it's self-injury, eating disorders, depression, anxiety. I think all of us just need to know that someone's there thinking about us, they care about us, and they're ready to help when they can. But as always, I don't have all the answers. Those are just my thoughts.
And thank you for talking to us, Kati. I know you've got a lot of work to do. Stay safe and look after yourself.
I will see you next time.